On this Sunday night, the race widens with 3 weeks to go. What new exclusive polling on the federal election shows.
A monumental change, the biggest I've ever seen.
As the Liberals and Conservatives target the West Coast. Parliament Hill arrest. A man is charged after an hours-long standoff with police. Trump tariff gains and losses.
Consumer challenges are already starting to surface.
The country's joining the queue to make a deal with the U.S.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We are 2 weeks into what is an unpredictable federal election campaign. Party leaders are wasting no time crisscrossing the country to reel in undecided voters who will prove crucial come Election Day. With just 21 days to go, every day matters. The frontrunners, Liberal leader Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, headed west this weekend. Later today, Carney made his way to Victoria, while Poilievre held campaign stops around Vancouver. And we have a new snapshot tonight that shows the margins are getting wider. New Ipsos polling conducted exclusively for Global News shows 46% of Canadians surveyed say they will vote for Carney's Liberals, up 2 points, compared to 34% for the Conservatives, down 4 points. Our David Aiken is traveling alongside the Liberal campaign. David, it's not Poilievre's first campaign pit stop in BC, but it is Mark Carney's. Clearly, both leaders believe there are some BC seats up for grabs.
Well, indeed, Colleen, among BC's 43 seats, nearly a third could change. And the ones most likely to flip are the 13 seats held by the NDP. In 2021, the NDP notched 29% of the popular vote in BC, but their current polling averages right now are less than half of that, below 14%. And that's because many of those who previously voted NDP are realizing that in the face of the Trump threat, they cannot vote for an opposition MP. They need to vote for a prime minister. Now, some of those will pick Pierre Poilievre, and indeed, the Conservatives are likely to pick up NDP seats on Vancouver Island and in BC's interior and north. But the Liberals are trending to steal NDP seats in the Lower Mainland and around Victoria. And that is where Mark Carney will campaign this evening in the riding of Victoria, where the incumbent is New Democrat Laurel Collins. Carney is trying to do something no Liberal leader has done since Paul Martin in 2008, and that is win a seat anywhere on Vancouver Island. And then on Monday, Carney will meet with BC Premier David Eby. They are expected to discuss ways to support the forestry sector in the wake of Trump's latest tariffs on softwood lumber. Colleen.
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thanks, David. The Conservative leader was back in BC this weekend after visiting the West Coast during week 1 of the Tory campaign. Pierre Poilievre made a campaign promise from New Westminster just outside of Vancouver, vowing to fund a new and controversial drug addiction recovery program for 50,000 people. Paul Johnson reports.
Imagine if the entire city of North Vancouver vanished from the face of the earth. That's what happens when 50,000 people die.
With a couple of dozen survivors of addiction looking on, Pierre Poilievre's Sunday announcement in BC marked the entry point in this campaign of the controversial file of addiction treatment. For years prior to the campaign, the Conservative leader has attacked Liberal policy on the issue. In particular, their greenlighting of BC's ongoing hard drug decrim program.
They decriminalized crack, heroin, cocaine, illicit fentanyl in partnership with the NDP government.
Poilievre announced his intent to fund 50,000 new treatment slots nationally, but with one catch. This funding would only be available to abstinence-only programs.
Organizations are going to be paid a set fee for the number of months they keep addicts drug-free. And they will be paid more for harder cases.
One prominent BC harm reduction advocate, Guy Felicella, told Global News while he would welcome any new treatment funding, he thinks Mr. Poilievre's plan is too simplistic and says factors outside of treatment are critical, things like housing support and poverty reduction.
So with all of the major party leaders right now touting their Canadian patriot credentials, one area where Mr. Poilievre stands apart is on addiction policy. After the state of Oregon backtracked on its hard drug decrim program last year, BC remains the only jurisdiction in North America where personal use amounts of hard drugs are still allowed. And that is a joint NDP Liberal program. Colleen?
Paul Johnson in New Westminster, BC. Thanks, Paul. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh wrapped up a tour of Atlantic Canada today with a pitch to protect renters. Singh spent a rainy morning with supporters at an Elbows Up rally near Halifax. He also met with renters in a Halifax cafe, promising to advocate for federal legislation to put tenants first over landlords.
Our plan is national rent control. Our plan is to end fixed-term leases. We want to end rent evictions and dem evictions. We want to strengthen tenant unions to be able to negotiate for their tenants with the landlords.
Jagmeet Singh says the key to such measures is to tie any federal housing funds given to provinces and municipalities to laws and bylaws that prioritize renters' rights. Mercedes Stevenson joins us now for more insight on how the race is unfolding so far. Mercedes, what can you tell us about all the momentum the Liberals have managed to maintain over the Tories?
Colleen, we've talked about how the tables have turned, with the Liberals making a comeback from their deflated status before Mark Carney came on as leader. But what is interesting here is that Carney continues to gain in the polls, and significantly so. The Liberals are now in a double-digit lead over the Conservatives among decided voters, placing them into majority government territory. I spoke to Ipsos CEO Darrell Bricker on the West Block today for some insights into what's happening.
Well, the Liberal lead has doubled in the space of the last week, so it's gone from 6 to 12. But if you take this back to 18 months ago, the numbers were completely reversed and actually very strongly in favor of the Conservative Party. So we've seen a monumental change, the biggest I've ever seen.
The Conservatives have begun to change gears over the past week to focus more on the issue of Donald Trump and tariffs. That in addition to their messaging around the cost of living and lowering crime. We'll see if that change helps them in the polls.
And Mercedes, tomorrow is the deadline for the parties to finalize their candidate rosters. How prepared are they?
Tomorrow is a big day for the parties, Colleen, the cutoff to have candidates nominated in ridings. Despite the Conservatives demanding this election and the Liberals being the ones to actually call it, all three major parties had big gaps in ridings where they had no candidate in place when the writ dropped. Add to that what has been a wild week in candidates being dropped after saying inappropriate things. And if the parties want to replace those people, they're going to have to move very quickly. Just shoving anyone into a riding, though, carries a risk if they haven't been vetted properly, as we've already seen. So one strategy that parties could focus in on is nominating or replacing candidates in ridings where they know they have a chance of winning. We'll see how many new names are on the ballot tomorrow. Colleen?
Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa. Thanks, Mercedes. In Ottawa, an hours-long standoff with police over a man who barricaded himself in Parliament's East Block came to an end late last night. A 31-year-old suspect who hasn't been identified is now in custody, facing several charges, including public mischief, uttering threats, property damage, and breach of probation. Police say the incident began yesterday afternoon when he began making threats in a security screening area. That led to a lockdown and an evacuation of the building. The man eventually surrendered peacefully after hours of negotiations. There were no reports of injuries. Police also searched for weapons and explosives, but none were found. Today, Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the pair discussing their commitment to work together to maintain global economic stability. The U.S. president's tariffs have derailed international trade and caused global stock markets to plunge. Some countries are now scrambling to cut deals with the U.S. or make concessions to prevent further economic turmoil. As Candice Cole reports, Donald Trump's supporters say it's proof the president's strategies are working.
In the days following President Donald Trump's broad tariffs on imports from nearly every country in the world, many world leaders are now lining up to make a deal.
He's created maximum leverage for himself, and more than 50 countries have approached the administration about lowering their non-tariff trade barriers, lowering their tariffs, stopping currency manipulation.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is among the first, with plans to negotiate in person with Trump on Monday. And Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te has proposed zero retaliatory tariffs with the U.S. after being hit with a 32% duty on products, pledging to remove trade barriers and invest even more money into the United States on top of the $100 billion investment announced last month by Taiwanese chipmaker TSMC. Following Trump's 25% tariff on foreign cars, Japanese automaker Nissan is considering locating some of its operations to the U.S., according to Japanese news outlet Nikkei. Trump's so-called economic revolution has caused global outrage and severe dips in the U.S. stock market.
Consumer challenges are already starting to surface, and certainly the stock market's impact on retirement income is shaking a lot of people.
When pressed on whether or not Trump was purposely causing U.S. markets to tank as a strategy to force the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett said,
"It is not a strategy for the markets to crash. It's a strategy to create a golden age in America for the American worker. That's his strategy."
But at least one state has its own strategy. As the world's fifth largest economy, California is appealing directly to foreign trade partners. U.S. Customs and Border Protection told Fox Business that it's already enforcing 13 tariff-related actions put forth by the Trump administration and collects over $200 million in extra revenue a day due to those measures. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
The price of oil takes a plunge. Coming up, the impact on Alberta as OPEC and tariffs take a toll. And Canadians take to the streets to take a stand in support of national sovereignty.
We have a simple message today. We love Canada.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew at a rally for Canada outside Manitoba's legislature. From Winnipeg to Montreal to Halifax, Canadians turned out in droves to send a direct message to U.S. President Donald Trump's taunts and threats towards Canadian sovereignty. Canada's energy sector will be watching the markets closely tomorrow after a wild week that saw oil prices dramatically drop. A surprise announcement by OPEC to increase production saw prices plummet to four-year lows. But the price of Canadian crude is doing better than some. Heather Yourex-West looks at what's happening and why there could be more pain coming down the pipeline.
A carbon tax cut fueled break at the pumps.
It is low as compared to the past days.
Just the beginning if oil prices globally continue to fall. The price of West Texas Intermediate, the key U.S. benchmark, closed at $62 a barrel Friday, a low not seen since 2021.
In terms of oil price impact, it was really a double whammy last week, right? You had already increasing concerns about global economic growth.
The U.S. president's sweeping tariff policies were compounded with a surprise announcement from OPEC. 8 member countries would be increasing production, setting up the potential of a global oil market oversupplied.
This was really about trying to crack down on non-compliant members and get more discipline into the system. Unfortunately, it just happened to be on the day when the global economy was suddenly put in a tailspin.
The drop in prices saw Canadian oil and gas stocks tumble by 15% Friday, though the price of the heavy oil Alberta exports wasn't hit quite as hard. Western Canadian Select always trades at a discount to the U.S. benchmark, but at the moment, that discount is small.
So a $13 differential would be fairly normal. The fact that we're under 10 right now indicates that there's not enough heavy oil available in the world, and refiners are really looking for it, and so our oil is in demand.
Energy expert Richard Masson also believes Canada's energy sector is well positioned to weather this storm, with many companies flush with cash having paid down debt the last few years. The province of Alberta, however, could be hit hard. This year's budget, already in a deficit, had planned for an oil price of $68 a barrel. It closed at $62 Friday, with analysts warning prices could fall further in the days to come. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Ahead, Israel's military backtracks on its account of the killing of 15 Palestinian medics. Israel's military has backtracked on its account of killing 15 Palestinian medics last month. It comes a day after new phone videos surfaced appearing to contradict the IDF's claims that the medics' vehicles did not have emergency sirens and signals on at the time. An Israeli military official now says soldiers made a mistake when they opened fire during this pre-dawn operation in Rafah on March 23rd. The new phone footage shows the emergency convoy driving slowly with lights flashing before coming under heavy fire as they arrived to help an ambulance that had run off the road. At least 18 people have been killed in the U.S. after severe spring storms moved through southern and midwestern states. Hundreds of roads are underwater following days of heavy rain in Kentucky and Arkansas. And tornadoes in those states ripped homes apart, as well as in Tennessee and Mississippi. About 37 million people from Texas to Ohio are under some form of flood or tornado alert. In Texas, a second child has died from a fast-spreading measles outbreak. Officials say the child was not vaccinated against measles and had no known underlying health conditions. The deaths are the first from the disease in the U.S. in a decade. Almost 500 measles cases have been identified in Texas since January, most of which are in unvaccinated people. Pope Francis made his first public appearance at the Vatican today since being released from hospital.
Buona domenica a tutti. Grazie tante.
The Pope surprised the crowd waiting at the entrance to St. Peter's Square today. The 88-year-old pontiff waved to the faithful who cheered and applauded as the Pope was pushed out in a wheelchair to the front of the altar. Pope Francis was released from hospital on March 23rd after a 5-week stay in Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he was treated for a bout of double pneumonia that almost cost him his life.
Selma, to your right.
A who's who of Hollywood stars were on the red carpet last night, not for any film awards, but for the Breakthrough Prize, which celebrates scientists for their work. Billed as the Oscars of Science, 6 $3 million prizes were awarded, and 2 Canadians were among the big winners. Toronto endocrinologist and clinician scientist Daniel Drucker was among 5 scientists honored for discovering the GLP-1 hormone used in drugs like Ozempic to treat diabetes, obesity, and other conditions.
Slowly but surely, we learned a lot about controlling blood sugar, then body weight. Now we have these fantastic medicines that reduce heart attacks, strokes, kidney disease, sleep apnea, all kinds of things. So it really shows you can't predict what the payoff will be for basic science, but it can be huge for human health.
The other Canadian winner was astrophysicist Micah Van Kooten, who helped develop systems that compensate for the effects of the Earth's atmosphere on telescopes, potentially enabling the direct detection of exoplanets. The great chase is officially over. Today, Alex Ovechkin clinched the top spot in the NHL history books. The Russian sharpshooter scored his 895th career goal, overtaking Wayne Gretzky to be crowned the league's greatest all-time goal scorer. Eric Sorensen looks at Ovechkin's outstanding achievement, one few thought would ever be possible.
It is one of the most hallowed records in sport, hockey's all-time goal-scoring mark, and it now belongs to Alex Ovechkin. After scoring goal number 895, the game was stopped, and the man whose record he broke congratulated him.
Alex, I said I'd be the first guy to shake your hand when you broke the record.
Wayne Gretzky has been generous in his praise for Ovechkin.
They say records are made to be broken, but I'm not sure who's going to get more goals than that.
Ovechkin thanked his family, gave his mom a kiss, and credited his teammates for making it all possible.
I would never stand there, and obviously I would never pass a great one. So, fellas, thank you very much. I love you so much. We did it, boys. We did it. It's a history.
It is extraordinary that Ovechkin has scored so many goals in an era when goals are harder to come by. Nicholas Backstrom has assisted on more Ovechkin goals than any other player.
And I always said that if there's any guy who could do it, it's him. He's got that ability to put the puck in the net like no one else.
Canadians are somewhat possessive of hockey. The all-time scoring leaders have always been Canadian heroes, Rocket Richard, then Gordie Howe, then Wayne Gretzky. And now Ovechkin, a Russian. a country that Canada is vehemently unhappy with over its war in Ukraine, Ovechkin's relationship with Vladimir Putin, and even Gretzky's friendship with U.S. President Trump leaves many Canadians with mixed emotions off the ice. But one of sport's great achievements is its capacity to set aside politics and celebrate athletic achievement together.
I'm always going to be grateful for and thankful for to Wayne, how he supported me.
For Gretzky, it has always been about building the game.
He's encouraged so many kids in his home country of Russia to play the sport of hockey. He's been nothing but a champion.
The question now is, will anyone ever beat Ovechkin's record? Besides Ovechkin, because he's still playing and still scoring. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
That's Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Meeting Creek, Alberta, Avondale, Nova Scotia, and Lark Harbour, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.